Right, this is the next part of our series on vertebrate animals. This one is over amphibians. Let's take a look at the picture here of the frog. What do you notice about the frog? Well, the frog doesn't have scales, doesn't have hair or feathers, doesn't have a shell. So we can already deduce that this is not a reptile because it doesn't have scales. It doesn't have hair, so that means it's not a mammal. It doesn't have feathers, so it's not a bird. Okay? It has moist bare skin, and because it has moist skin, the giveaway here is that it belongs to a group called amphibians. Amphibians live part of their lives in the water and part on land. They are cold-blooded. They eat both plants and animals. Those are some characteristics that will come in handy to you as you complete your amphibians characteristics assignment. So keep in mind again, these characteristics. They have moist bare skin. They live part of their life in the water and part on land. They're cold-blooded. They eat both plant and animal. They're alike in all these ways again. They lay their eggs in the water. Their babies live in the water, but when they grow up, they live on land. They all have 4 legs, and again, the wet, smooth skin. So let's go into these just a little bit more, compare them to the other groups. They lay their eggs in water. Well, we know that mammals give live birth, so that's different. Okay, the babies live in water. Well, when the babies are born in water, they look different from how they'll look as an adult. That goes into the next part. When they grow up, they live on land. Well, to live on land, they need certain things. Think, you and me live on land because we have what organ to help us breathe? Lungs. So that means if the babies live in water, do they have lungs? No. They have gills, much like a fish. So babies look one way, have gills, breathe that way. As they start to change, they go through a process called metamorphosis. And we'll get more into that in a second. Well, through the metamorphosis, they change, they develop lungs, and they change into an adult, growing their 4 legs. Think tadpole to frog, and again they have the wet, smooth skin. Here are some different types of amphibians that you can see. Frogs, toads, salamanders, and newts are all amphibians. You also have blind, limbless amphibians, your Sicilians. We'll talk more in a second. Again, look at the poison dart frog. You know it's poisonous because it's red. Bright colors, again, give away a sign that it's poisonous. Look at the toad. Let's frogs versus toads here for a second. Smooth skin on the frog, smooth on the toad because it's amphibian, but notice there's a few more bumps on the toad. It's a lot bigger too. You can look at those 3 frogs there, or the green frog, the poison dart frog, the western toad. Salamanders. Yeah, spotted salamander, again, even though it looks like a lizard, which a lizard's a reptile, that's not a lizard. It's got smooth skin and not scales, so that's a salamander. You also have your mud puppy salamander right here, and you got your tree frog down there in the bottom. Again, these are all different types of amphibians. Okay, the 3 types of amphibians. Again, you have jumping amphibians, which are your frogs and toads. They have 4 legs. They do not have a tail. You can see them in the bottom there. Take a look at the picture of the toad. So jumping amphibians. Your tailed amphibians have 4 short legs. They have an adult tail, so they don't have a tail as a baby. They grow that as they go through their metamorphosis. Those are your newts and salamanders. And then you have your blind, limbless amphibians, which they don't have arms or legs. They're blind. They have pretty much no eyes. They can't see. They live underground. They look like earthworms, but they're not earthworms because they have a backbone. That's what's important here. Amphibians have backbones. So even though this thing right here looks like a worm or a snake, it's not. It is an amphibian. It's got that smooth skin. It just can't see and lives underground. You rarely see it, so you probably wouldn't know if you did see it. You'd think it was a worm, but you might want to double check. That's why it's important to know these characteristics. So when you see this question again, because you will, remember the three types of amphibians are jumping, tailed, and blind limbless. Okay, frogs versus toads. So what's the difference between these two? Well, frogs, little guys over here, they're better jumpers. Because look at their legs, they're a little bit longer, they got a little bit more power and spring in them, so they're going to jump higher. Whereas the toad on the other side has short, less powerful legs. It's going to still hop, but it's not going to jump like the frog. They both have a bare, moist skin because they're amphibians, but the frog has moister skin, looks a little bit smoother and shinier. The toad has a drier looking skin, has a few more bumps, but it's still a smooth skin. Frogs are in the water a lot more often, and toads are in the water only to mate or to lay eggs. Other than that, you're going to see them on land most of the time. What they both have in common is they both have the webbed feet, and neither one of them give you warts. Contrary to popular belief, frogs and toads do not give warts. Warts are part of a virus that is not transmitted by frogs, so it's okay to pick them up and touch them. They're not going to give you warts. The last thing we want to talk about here before we wrap up is the frog life cycle. To do that, let's watch this quick video clip.
The frogs lay their eggs in calm or static water. These eggs float on the surface of the water body. And some of them die while others hatch after some time. Baby frogs have a tail and look like fish. They're called tadpole. Shortly after hatching, the tadpole feeds on the yolk of the egg. After a few days, the tadpole can swim around and eat algae. It gradually develops teeth, which help it.
So sorry about that. The video had a little difficulty here, but to finish out the life cycle, after the tadpole develops teeth, it's going to then start to grow its arms and legs. From then it's still at the tail. It's now at a metamorph stage. It's an in-between frog, and then the in-between frog will then change it to an adult frog, where it then lays eggs, and the cycle repeats itself. I apologize for the video difficulties. I will post a link to this YouTube video on Edmodo for you to watch in the full version, so please make sure you watch both videos. So as you're completing your amphibians characteristics assignment, I want you to remember these characteristics and display them in your assignment. Amphibians are like in these ways. They've got these characteristics. They lay their eggs in the water. Their babies live in water. When they grow up, they live on land. They have 4 legs. They have a wet, smooth skin. Okay. Think about those things. If you have questions about amphibians, feel free to research on your own on Google or message me on Edmodo.